The weather is changing dramatically this week as we head into February with more winter storms, severe weather, and extreme temperature changes across the US, and atmospheric rivers return to the west coast. In this video, we'll look at what you can expect from this weather pattern, but first, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more weather updates. Also, feel free to comment below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this weather pattern. So first, we have the cutoff low that was over the southwest over the past few days, bringing some rain and snow to the bone-dry southwestern U.S., has moved eastward and actually kicked off a much bigger storm system east of the Rockies. We actually have some rain and thunderstorms across the south. We have even the potential for severe thunderstorms still moving across parts of Louisiana tonight, and that kind of moves eastward across the south tonight into early Friday, early tomorrow morning. And yeah, the SPC, they actually had a slight risk of severe weather for much of Louisiana, but now that's down to a marginal risk. So mostly non-severe thunderstorms, but a couple isolated severe thunderstorms are possible. And this was mostly a tornado wind potential, not really hail. Part of that is because this storm system is pretty dynamic, especially with a lot of strong winds and shear, but the instability, not really there. And so it was pretty much mostly shear, not so much instability, and that was really limiting the severe weather potential from this. But as we go forward throughout the day, tomorrow, Friday, January 31st, a lot of the thunderstorms move east across the south, and then notice what happens. You have all this rain from the Midwest across to the Ohio Valley, even going to the Northeast. A lot of rain, not even a lot of snow. Some of it could turn into snow as that colder air kind of moves in behind this system, but all this rain, it's like last week we were looking at a historic blizzard with a bunch of snowfall across the Gulf Coast, and now we're seeing much warmer temperatures, even rain across the Midwest, and severe weather in the South, but also rain across the Midwest and the Northeast. So that's a dramatic change from really most of January with these temperatures warming up. But notice what happens. You also have atmospheric rivers hitting the West Coast again. Looks like the first one is going to hit pretty much really tonight into tomorrow. The first of several atmospheric rivers actually moving into the West Coast with a lot of rain, and then in the higher elevations, snow and pretty cold temperatures behind all of these. But notice what happens. You keep having all this rain starting on Friday, going into this weekend, and then it just continues into next week. Some places just continuous rain and snow for at least 5 days, and then it keeps going, kind of lightens up. All this moisture actually goes eastward, and you actually have the potential for rain, freezing rain, and snowfall across the northern plains and the Midwest, all the way across to the Northeast, as all that moisture is getting carried pretty far east. But notice all these warmer temperatures surging to the north. You have those colder temperatures back here across the western U.S. and the northern plains, but warm temperatures really surging across the south, even the Ohio Valley and the East Coast. And then these atmospheric rivers continue, and then at least till the middle of next week, around February 6th, February 7th, and then things kind of stop, and then you might have some more storm activity across the south and the East Coast, because you have all this colder air trying to move down into the south again, but then you have this warm air surging north, and so depending on how this interacts, you could have a significant storm system, possibly. And then after that, there could be still some more storm activity. We'll have to see what happens after the first week of February. Towards the middle of February, there's the potential for more storm systems, but we'll see what happens with that. But just over the next 7 days, these atmospheric rivers are going to bring significant precipitation to areas that have seen well below average precipitation over the past month, especially like California. You could have like 3 to 6 inches of rain across parts of Northern California, even the higher elevations. The mountains could see 18 inches of precipitation, which is going to be in the form of snowfall for the most part, but this is a lot of rain. Even parts of Southern California could see 1 to 3 inches of rain, at least. That's a lot of rain, and, this could be a big problem for the burn scar areas that have, had a lot of the fires. Then all this rain on top of that could definitely cause a lot of flooding and mudslides, but beneficial rainfall for Northern California and Western Washington and Oregon, 2, 3, even 4 inches of rain for these areas. And then even further into the Rocky Mountains, several inches of precipitation there. And then looking at your total snowfall, over the next 7 days, you could have a ton of snow. It's not just the rain. At higher elevations, you have several feet of snow, especially in the Sierra Nevada mountains. You could see possibly over 100 inches in some of these places, and 3 to 6 feet of snow across the Yellowstone area, even parts of Idaho and Montana, 2 to 4 feet of snow. And then, as we saw in the simulated radar, all this energy, it goes from the western U.S., but then it just kind of slides eastward across the northern part of the U.S. along the jet stream. It's like in the south, you have more of kind of ridging, so then everything just kind of goes north of that. Kind of looks like that type of setup. And so then you could have some snowfall, just what's left of the moisture, kind of going across the northern plains, the Midwest, going into the Northeast over time. Really, the West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest, seeing tons of snowfall over the next week with all these atmospheric rivers. And then if you look at the temperature anomalies, notice what happens, especially this is February 3rd, Monday. Notice all these well below average temperatures across southwestern Canada and the northwestern U.S., even spilling over into the northern plains. And this is pretty intense, but then notice you have all these well above average temperatures, all this warmth really across the south, well above average temperatures across the south, even into the Midwest, and you have even across the Great Basin and the Four Corners region, well above average temperatures, but then a lot of these below average temperatures are trying to move into the West Coast and really clashing with the well above average temperatures across some of the Rocky Mountains, and this could lead to some high winds and heavy snowfall. And notice as we go into like February 5th, February 6th, even February 7th, notice these below average temperatures actually expanding more, and this warm air is just surging northward across the East Coast. Over time, all these below average temperatures might produce kind of another Arctic blast, possibly towards the middle of February. This could either create some big storm system or create another Arctic blast. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. The National Weather Service day 3 to 7 hazards outlook from February 2nd to February 6th is looking at hazardous cold temperatures across the Northeast, hazardous cold temperatures across like Montana especially, and I think before they had it even perhaps potentially across parts of the Pacific Northwest with those well below average temperatures, but heavy snowfall across some of these mountains, across the higher elevations, heavy snow, heavy rain across Northern California, even the Sierra Nevada mountains, heavy precipitation, especially snowfall, and then high winds across the northwest part of the U.S. and even the northern plains. Yeah, very active weather returns to the western part of the U.S., which is quite a change from what was happening through most of January. And then this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, well below average temperatures across the northwest with very likely above average temperatures across the southeast and the south. Really, all that warmth just staying in place over there while the colder temperatures move into the west coast. And then the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, above average precipitation returns to California and even the Great Basin, with also above average precipitation for the Ohio Valley and surrounding areas. And then we have still below average across parts of the Southwest and even possibly for Florida over the next 6 to 10 days. Going to the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, February 7th to 13th, we have these below average temperatures could expand eastward into the central part of the U.S. and the warmth kind of still staying in place across the southeast. In terms of precipitation, kind of similar, but more precipitation for the Ohio Valley and parts of the mid-south, still below average across parts of the southwest, especially southern Arizona, southern New Mexico. Then we get to the weeks 3 to 4 temperature outlook, February 8th to 21st. There's still pretty much similar below average temperatures expected. This is for most of February across the northwest part of the U.S. and the northern plains, above average temperatures likely across parts of the southwest, and also the southeast and part of the east coast, the mid-Atlantic area. Precipitation looking above average for the northwest, also for the Ohio Valley and parts of the northeast, with below average precipitation across the south. And this looks suspiciously similar to the typical winter La Nina pattern, which is actually what we would expect in a typical La Nina. But this is a lot different than most of January, which had well below average temperatures across most of the really eastern to 3/4 of the U.S. saw well below average temperatures. I think January 2025 has been the coldest January for most of the U.S. in decades, but it's also been very dry for the Southwest, especially Southern California and Arizona. One of the driest winters there, but February is expected to have a much different weather pattern, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a like, share the video, comment below, and subscribe, and turn on notifications for more weather updates. Extreme Weather Zone, out.